go forward. So let's just get through bans and then work out what's going on. So TL in game number 1 chose blue side. Game number 2, TSM choose blue side. So Team Liquid is on the red side. It means the draft changes a little bit in terms of where the picks are going to happen. You don't have a 5th pick for Broken Blade on the red side this time, but potential to get a good matchup for Jensen or Impact goes up. TL are a team that probably really wishes it was a 2v2 meta so they could just like counterpick support as last pick. Gen G, for example, when Ruler and Core JJ were the only way to win for a lot of 2018, would always counterpick support or AD carry in the last round just to get an advantage around the 2v2. And Core JJ's here on this team, so there's some irony in that. But this is also the portion of the stream where I haven't watched anything after game number 1, so I got no idea how this plays out, apart from who wins the overall series. Tom Kench blue side ban from TSM means first pick Galio here is like ultra powerful. But they first pick Taric. Okay, so as you know, my latest meme, which people in chat can spam right now, Papa's really, was perhaps best used for when Sona Taric was open and a team first picks Sona. Never first pick Sona. It's trash. Because then you only have Sona. It's terrible. Because unfortunately, in 2v2, Sona can be exploited really hard. You take Taric, and then you always have Taric. You don't even have to go Sona Taric. You can just play Taric. And yes, he's not the greatest in lane, but he can get through it. The moment that you early pick Sona, the value of Sona in the current meta is Sona with Taric ult, allowing her to position aggressively with a lot of farm. Sona's support doesn't get the farm, builds a redemption at 30 minutes, is never actually level 16 to abuse her internal cooldown reduction, abusing, and thus is just trash. So don't pick Sona because you don't want to play Sona support. Sona first was in the EU Masters. It made me very upset. Taric first is what you want to do, because now the enemy has to decide, do we want a Sona support? Probably not. Sona's not very good without gold. Like, Sona's a great late-game champion as a support if it's solo queue and everyone derps for 30 minutes and you can show up with 2 items, like a Redemption Archangels or an Archangels Ardent Sensor if you go summon an Aerie at 35 minutes, and then you're a really good champ. But in pro play, you desperately ultra need to, you know, be Frostmancy and get the gold going and things like that. So Sona support, solo queue, summon an Aerie, flex on some noobs, fine. In pro play, you cannot get value out of this pick. It's too exploitable in lane, and you don't get the gold because you're buying control wards and you have half an item at 30 minutes. So not the way to go. So first pick Taric, it gets them Sona Taric. TL in the first round. Now, Galio should be super high priority for TL, but they don't have to pick it straight away. Like, what they have to pick here on the red side, when you see Taric, you know the enemy team's going to pick Sona, and you're not picking Sona, so you pick jungle to not give TSM exactly the jungler they want, or the top tier jungler, and then from there you're kind of situational. So you would have assumed Galio here, and then hold AD carry, but they actually take the Ashe, which in the end doesn't matter too much, but it happens. So Arcadian and Bjergsen lock in Hecarim Sona, and if you guys remember, before this series happened, I was talking about how the god tier abuser of Sona Taric's mid to late game power is Hecarim. Hecarim is the best champion with Sona Taric once Sona Taric starts to get to do what they do, because he can abuse everything this duo provides. He can go full damage, dive into the backline with Conqueror, which is what you get with Ghost on Hecarim, almost certainly going to be Conqueror. And then from there, you're in the backline with Trinity Force and a Warrior Enchant doing a huge amount of damage. Now, it could be top lane from Broken Blade as well. We don't know, but it's a flex pick for them. From there, you're full damage, whether you're building Trinity Force in lane or the Warrior Trinity Force from the jungle. You have the ability to stay invulnerable. your engage range is insanely massive while you're doing that, and you have a very obvious Bastion link to connect with the Dazzle after the either the knockback or the fear is down, the Terrify, I should say, from the Onslaught of Shadows. You use the on-hit damage super well from the Sona. You use the sustain alongside your own sustain to like power through any sort of extended fight. So there's a lot of internal synergy. You want to be able to auto-attack, frontline, and have strong engage. That's the best champions with... And consistent damage. That's the best champions with a Sona. And guess what? Hecarim is that. So this was cool to hear. Someone had tipped me off, by the way, and said, by the way, just what you wanted. Hecarim Sona Taric. Well, very excited to see Hecarim Sona Taric. And it's kind of makes the Ashe more awkward because Hecarim as a champ just like styles on Ashe as a champ, right? Because you roll in with the New Age damage build on Hecarim, and whether you're knocking her back or terrifying her or just killing her, like it's a really bad skirmishing matchup for the Ashe. And it's Ashe Zyra. The irony of Ashe Zyra coming out here. That's cool. I didn't know this was Ashe Zyra. So Ashe Zyra is, if you guys were around in summer 2013, you'd know all about Ashe Zyra. This was the lane that propelled Cloud9 to relevancy the first time. They loved Ashe Zyra. Sneaky and Lemon used to pop off on Ashe Zyra. And it's one of the few ways you can make Zyra work is that you have very strong ranges in this lane to poke around and take a lot of advantages. Ashe as a champ is limited mobility, but if you come to Zyra, she has, of course, huge AoE interruption with Strangle Thorns and all of the plants and the predictability to go into the grasping roots. Ashe Zyra is a real blast from the past. That's cool to see come back in this game. I didn't know about that, so I really like it, and it's a lane that can delete one person. It reminds me a bit of Ashe MF against Zyra at the famous Rox SKT semifinals, right? So in laning phase, especially at 6, you can kill one person really easily, but I think the 5v5 payoff of Zyra isn't as high because you kind of have to wait out Cosmic Radiance 2.5 seconds, and then Ashe or Zyra is probably dead before that happens. So getting off the team fight wombo doesn't work, but in lane, it's arrow into grasping roots into kill. So you're trying to take advantage of the early game here, but I think compositionally it undoes you, and I don't think it dominates lane as hard as, say, Lucian Galio, which was available. It's the one that we saw LS talking about. So Jensen gets Zoe. Okay. So just in the same spot where TSM picked up Zoe, it's not going to be banned. The cost for getting this is that TSM ban out GP. They don't want to have Cannon Barrage to join in with the potential bot lane party. I get that one. And Jensen's LeBlanc's just getting permabanned. So clearly Bjergsen doesn't like that against his range of champions. What do we see picked here? So into Zoe, seeing Echo hover, but I assume that hover is just a anti-Jensen hover. In lane against Zoe, like a Zoe busting champion, I'm using that. I like Echo a lot into this lane. BDD popped off on Echo versus Zoe. It's pretty good there. Some teams will play Syndra, as we know. Let's wait and see what the choices are. So they need to draft solo lanes. If you get winning lanes around Sona Taric, then it just all falls into place and you win even harder. So you want blind pickable top lane here. What's up? Kennen's up. You probably take Kennen. I think Kennen beats most of Impact's reign of champions. I guess he might pick Victor into it, and Victor's a pretty good laning matchup. I don't really know. Broken Blade could blind pick something way more aggressive, but does it beat Kennen is something for him to consider. What do we pick here? Holy crap! Bjergsen played Lux in this series, and I didn't know about it? I mean, it's an outrange on Zoe. Wow. Really? Huh. It's a matchup I've never seen play out outside of solo queue or something like that. So, Outrange is definitely an option against a lot of champions. Like, Lux is a champion alongside things like Xerath that work in some matchups, right? Like, when you start seeing Azir, you're like, where's the Xerath at? And he played Lux in this lane. It's another champion that makes Hecarim strong because it's another shield. And it actually works with the Sona Taric. Interesting. Champion who is usually not picked because super unreliable to play. If you don't hit all your spells in team fights, you can't usually rely on it. But with the fights guaranteed to go through a second round of cooldowns, maybe that's less relevant because you have Sona Taric Hecarim to extend fights. Very interesting. Okay, so we talked about the Kennen as the blind pick. I discounted the fact that Aurelia was banned in game 1, but not banned here. I like the Aurelia versus Kennen matchup. I know not everyone does. And it's another diver. Love it. 3 backliners who can start to frontline with Cosmic Radiance arms and 2 divers. This is a cool draft from TSM. This is where I should just get on Reddit, so get on Twitter, like 2 weeks after this final and just at Zix and be like, nice draft, by the way, for game number 2. As if I was watching along live. Nope, I was sleeping. There was Z's in my head, but there are no sleeps. It's good I didn't watch this game, because again, I watched game 1 after casting the final of LCK and watching the LEC series. There's no way I could go to sleep if I stayed up for this second round game draft. This was at like 5:30 a.m. Korean Standard Time, but I would have been so hyped to watch it too. So Kennen's picked here. Again, Aurelia wins this matchup, I think, more often than she loses it. In my head. I'm ready to be wrong on that, but I don't see how Aurelia doesn't have some all-in value, and even if Kennen goes Gunblade, I think Aurelia's pretty. I guess you could go, full-on hit build with Blade of the Ruin King and maybe win it, but I feel like Aurelia's fine in this match. I think the Kennen's more taken to have 2 circles, because TL have Ashe Zoe, and they want to peel for those 2 with Kennen ult and Zyra ult. But how often, against anyone other than Sona Taric, if this is a standard bot lane, like Lucian Braum, let's say, is the bot lane, I think actually TL's comp is very strong, because Hecarim goes in and then the double circles come down, and then, I'm talking about Stranglethorns and Kennen ult, and then, Ashe should not die in the initial burst, and you fight back. But with Sona Taric there, frustrating to deal with, and then some. Wow. Interesting. Really interesting draft here. I'm sad that I only just saw this game now. I wish I saw this earlier. This is the part where, like, delaying this series to VOD review it live, I guess, gets a more honest reaction from me, but I feel hard done by because I didn't know we had a professional Lux game. So it's Conqueror Hecarim, so full damage is what you're going to see on that side. Comet. Zyra for laning phase, because there's always the chance to burst down Sven or Smoothie during the laning phase. Otherwise, Rune's pretty standard. It's become the new standard to go teleport Zoe with Unsealed Spellbook, because then you can actually follow side lane as fine, and you get the more Sparkles value from Unsealed Spellbook, so that part is fine. Professional Lux game, ladies and gentlemen. Cool to watch. I love TSM's comp. I mean, the Lux is not something I would pick, because I just almost forget she's a champion most of the time. But when you talk, if all these champions show up with their items in the mid game, it's GG. You've won the game. Almost impossible for this comp to lose 5v5s. I couldn't see it happening ever. So again, there's multiple schools of thought with how you play against Ashe Zyra. Sorry, against Sona Taric. They went Ashe Zyra, which can be a kill lane at 6. But before that, the poke obviously does pretty decently. Grasping Roots onto Sona with Cleanse Down, and you can kill her. She has 400 base health, right? She's super duper squishy. Or you can do something creative. We've seen Funnel, we've seen Veigar Alistar. There's lots of different ways to go. I'm actually really looking forward to my next stream where I get to review the Funnel game to talk about Funnel versus Sona Taric. It's actually very intelligent from G2 to choose that as one way to deal with it. That's one way to play the lane. Okay. So, E level 2 gank attempt and a trade of flashes. This trade of flashes is so good for TSM. You dream of this trade of flashes because Tarek's flash is worth way less than Sona's flash because Sona is super duper squishy and she's the one that's like walking up to harass, try to get gold generation going with the Spell Thief start. But Zyra's flash is way more valuable than Ashe's flash in the laning phase because Zyra is the one who takes control of the lane pre-level 6 on the Ashe. She has the engage. She has the more reliable harass that can hit behind minions. So Zyra wants to be walking up and poking with Q and trying to get plant connections. So her flash being down means that Core JJ will have to position a lot more defensively. Meanwhile, Tarek's always Tarek. Like, he's so tanky that he's going to position back most of the time, given that he's last hitting. So while he'll take some harassment doing so, he's got the sustain to get through it. So great trade of flashes here to extend the laning phase and make it more likely that Sven and Smoothie can farm out. You'll notice that it's a Spell Thief start from the Sona. If you go TP Sona, which is too risky against Ashe Zyra, would be wrong in this game. You can start Corrupting Potion, and you really do want regen in this lane because when you're trying to walk around the minion wave to harass, you're going to be taking, volley plus some Zyra damage. But that's a huge service done by Smoothie and Arcadian to make this laning phase a lot more even. And while in more recent series, I'm seeing people get pounded when they go Sona Tarek. Sona Tarek got through in the semis just fine, and this Sona Tarek looks in a pretty decent spot. What happened top side? I'm just watching the laning wave position here. So Impact went to push in. Huh. Good communication. See, question mark ping on the scuttle. Aurelia is able to surf on full stacks into Impact with Conqueror. Really well. Broken Blade played this lane really well, and I felt the Broken Blade that I was first exposed to, like when I watched Broken Blade in weeks 1 to 4 of the LCS, would make that play with no vision. But because they had the vision of Rek'Sai on the scuttle, it actually ends up being a really controlled play. Well played by Broken Blade to take over this lane. Like, it's not something that gets a lot, but it gets a back timing out of a Kennen. Like, you feel so good that Kennen's first back is nothing towards a Bilgewater. Really well played. If people want to kind of, because I haven't cast Sona Tarek as much, because we haven't had it in Korea, Sona Tarek, the kind of elevator pitch, if you haven't seen them or you're unsure of them or it's the first time you've seen them, really bad in lane. So 2v2 is very, very weak. Sona usually relies on kind of an 80 carry advantage or like a summon a spell advantage to harass as a support. So when her only job is to harass and she's going to walk into lock-on range, it's pretty predictable to poke back on, and she's very, very squishy. And the laning phase only really starts for her after she cashes in the quest, which usually takes about 10 to 12 minutes in the game. Tarek is probably the worst laning support of a champion whose primary role is support because he has one ability in lane. It's Dazzle, which you kind of have to face check the brushes in for the line skill shot with a cast time to hit you. So between the two, they don't really do anything in lane. But mid to late game, they have a lot of synergy and are very strong in the 5v5. And you get that extra ward on the Sona that makes objectives strong. And you start an objective, Sona, Tarek, Lux, all shielding and healing, Aurelia and Hecarim, who will be starting that objective. They turn, and then it all falls into place. So laning phase bad, late game good is all you really need to know about Sona Tarek. Cadian got to watch on as Svenskeren had some excellent games on Hecarim, the C9 series. So for sure he's just taking all of his inspiration from the guy he just beat, which that's how you should do it, right? That's definitely the way to play this out. Broken Blade got a back timing where he didn't have to teleport against a cannon. Like, Broken Blade is really, really far ahead in this lane. It's a sort of thing that I think can be lost on people who are not watching closely, but Cannon versus Aurelia early goes Cannon's way because it's range versus melee. Like, Aurelia needs ult and some levels to have some threat. You know, Sheen to have some all-in options, or a Tiamat to try to match wave clear. So in the time when Impact's relatively strongest on the Cannon, which is no items or maybe first item purchase, for Aurelia to find the time to draw out the enemy's teleport and get back timing where he doesn't have to use his teleport is massive. This is really actually smashing in a matchup, even though it doesn't look like that in this case. Good point from Milkman in chat. Reapit said Froggen was owning people on Veigar, Vel'Koz, and Luxon scrims. Yeah, it's cool. It's just a different way to play against Zoe, and the Zoe player would definitely have like less than 10 games experience playing against Lux. So given the synergy with the comp they already have, and the fact that Lux can just always stick back and farm at least part of a wave. Yes, you might miss some minions, but 600 range auto, E, Q, R, all of her spells have huge range. Like, you might give up 1 CS a wave, but if you can show up mid-game as Lux and you have a pretty forgiving comp here, in that you can position and always have things like Cosmic Radiance, multiple heals, you have shielding synergy with your Aurelia and Hecarim divers. Like, as fights play out, Lux is so likely to be a general in this game. So this control ward, how long has that been there? I haven't seen this control ward spot before. Cool control ward spot. So this is one you might want to take into solo queue. So this is a we don't have control of river control ward where you're putting control ward exposed. I'm talking about the one just above Zyra on the tip before the tri-brush here that will spot a, the equivalent of a lane gank. Like, that's the same as Zyra walking all the way to Krugs. Sorry, to Krugs and putting down a ward on Tarek's model to spot a lane gank from a Rammus or a Hecarim. This is a lack of river control ward that spots Hecarim coming in. That's why it's communicated to Arcadian that just as Ashe and Zyra are going to be overextended for a while, this is the play to make. And another thing to consider when you're playing against Sona Tarek is that Sona Tarek is almost always going to be pushed in because the Tarek's a melee champ struggling to auto-attack minions before the quest is calculated, and Ashe Zyra has a lot of threat onto those two, so they're going to be pushed in. You're never getting turret plates as Sona Tarek. You're trying to deny how many turret plates you give over. It's the reason why Funnel, I'll expand on this when I do G2 Origin, but Funnel is smart against Sona Tarek because the one thing Sona Tarek doesn't have at all, apart from just like the boiler point plate of lane pressure, is that Funnel died because turret plates were introduced and there was too much gold opportunity cost. If you were leaving lane, minions push in, and you're not just losing minion waves, you're losing turret plates. So the enemy laner might not be as overloaded in gold as the person being funneled, but he's getting, 600 gold worth of plates that wasn't there before. If you're funneling against a Sona Tarek, whether you're sending Morgana bot or the Sona Tarek goes mid, Sona Tarek have almost no turret threat because they don't build AD or AP in the laning phase. And it's a melee Tarek, and Sona's not the biggest range. So you actually punish alone in a lane as Sona Tarek, a funnel, way worse than almost any conventional duo. So Morgana just sticking back, putting down a puddle, while Sona Tarek don't have anyone to proc the quest on because Morgana's not in range of the power chord or the Q, him of whatever it is, the aggressive one. And they're not doing turret damage. That's the wombo combo where there's just no value in Sona Tarek abusing Funnel. Therefore, Funnel abuses harder than Sona Tarek abuses. It's kind of a weird double abused case in that particular case. So that's the Funnel explanation that I'm still bottling, and we'll talk about again when I review G2 Origin game number 2, but just talking about the Sona Tarek stuff. So to flow into this game, given you're going to be overextended, poking as double lift and core JJ, a river control ward is what you want, because that's the best way to get protection against Arcadium, because with river control, and you usually take water walking on Hecarim, that's the angle you're most likely to be ganked from, and you know you're going to be overextended. So playing to your lane state, which is what that control ward does, is very smart. So shout out to Double Lift and Core JJ for a cool control ward. No water walking this time. A lot of Hecarim builds I see have water walking in them. Your title still says Game 1. I will update that as we go along with the stream. That's an easy thing to update. Thank you very much for that. Game 2. Alright, so laning phase. 1 back timing gotten for Sven at the cost of 1 turret plate, so on the way towards the transformation. We'll see if it's around 10 minutes, that's what we expect. It's 200 gold, so you see 22 gold a proc. It's going to take about 10 to 12 minutes to get that transformation, but only 1 turret plate is fine. Still TL making the right moves. They don't have level 6 to make this like guaranteed, but they have a Ashe for Hawkshot. They have a Rek'Sai who has the skirmishing advantage over Hecarim, and the enemy bot lane can't rotate because it's Tarek, who, as we know, suck in the early game. So with all of that, stealing red buff, nice little objective take. So 1 turret plate, 1 red buff. That's so far what Tarek have given up. So far, not enough. Let's watch that again. So how does this play go? Both junglers are top side. Broken Blade makes a mistake. He actually gets caught under turret. Yeah, that's a pretty big mistake here. Safety first flash. First laning mistake we've seen from Broken Blade. He gets stunned under an extra turret shot for no reason at all and has to give up the summoner, so... TL's just looking for everything. Like, TSM have basically an open early game outside of Hecarim all-ins. Like, around that, they have Aurelia, who's, you know, getting closer and closer to having priority in this lane. They have Lux, who can just push the wave and back. Can't really push in Zoe. Just can clear from safety. And Tarek with a Hecarim jungle who loses the skirmishing matchup. So if you add that all together, it's how much can TL get in the early game against a pretty greedy scaling comp from TSM. Right now, 1,000 gold lead. It's never enough until you start breaking turrets. Two turret plate spots, so we're getting there. That's not bad for the first 10 minutes. No quest transformation just yet. Phage completion. It's pretty good for Broken Blade here. He has some all-in options in this lane. You always feel good when it's high roll Drakes against Sonatar, because Sonatar should never be fighting for Drakes early in the game. And that gets them the Mountain Drake. So we're now saying what? It was 2 turret plates, enemy red buff, Aurelia's flash for and a Mountain Drake for 1 turret plate, and again some more scaling. We'll be able to get the power time a bit sooner. It's 10 minutes, no transformation yet on the Sonar, but we're probably pretty close to it. Now what you want to be doing here is using your ult to try to force out one of the defensive tools, and then... So I think Double Lift should be trying to arrow Sven if he's ever in a 1v2, like now, for example. Draw out at least Cleanse, and then bring Rek'Sai to try to turret dive in the future on the next cooldown from the arrow. Because if you're just going Ashe Zyra to 5v5, I just think Sonatar Hecarim does it way better. I think you need to, you know, be Praying Gorilla, Misfortune Ashe levels of punishing what is a very weak 2v2. But we're not seeing that. They got a heal. Okay, so that they got a summoner, but you notice the difference here, right? Is they do get a summoner after all off screen. Smoothie used heal. That's the least valuable summon to take. It's heal Guardian from the Tarek, so you need to find a way to pressure out in the small windows when Tarek's looking for vision. If you're just getting heal, that's not a big enough objective. And there's the transformation. Comes in at 11 minutes. Fine. That's the fastest. The only thing I can tell you guys is that the game where Deft went bot lane Victor, at 4 minutes 30, he teleported back to lane with Frostfang, and he had it fully cashed in by 10. So that's the fastest that you can get it going. And actually, the punishment for not starting Spell Thieves is pretty small, because Frostfang gives you so much gold per harass. But this is fine. Like anything around 10 minutes is fine. Now the lane positioning changes. This is the big advantage, is that the lane gets harder to play to punish Taric Sona after the quest comes in. Because before, all Sven is doing is trying to harass the enemy. So he's predictably walking forward, and he's never just trying to auto-attack minions. The melee range Taric is, and you're trying to harass the Sona. At this point, the Sona can actually play like a short-range AD carry, like a Sivir, for example, for some of the laning phase. And thus, the Taric gets to play like a traditional support rather than a carry. So it gets harder to force Sona Taric out of lane. When ults are available, that part's simple, but also when the quest is cashed in. They don't have wards of a camp, but it's really nice. Like, the bot side is littered. This is a, you can overextend as much as you want Ashe Zyra ward set up here. It's not exhaustive, but it's so many different paths to bot lane are spotted that I'm impressed by TL's bot lane setup. It's actually a really nice setup. Here's the all-in. A 1-for-1 advantage for Sona Taric is a huge advantage. So let's talk about how this starts. We don't necessarily need to slow it down. Just consider, it starts, interestingly, from TSM walking up and just putting down... Okay, that's... Part of it's off-screen, I guess. Let's make sure no tools are used before this starts. Arrow's on cooldown, so Double Lift doesn't have that for punishment. And it's just a see hero, kill hero moment where they're trying to, I guess, draw Core JJ out. And this is what Zyra has always been about. Brush control, wasn't an awarded brush, hits everything. Grasping roots into the Stranglethorns. As an aside, Core JJ Zyra is a super famous pick from his early days. Zyra was the champion that he role swapped to support and mained. It was by far his most career picked in 2016. Has only played it maybe 2 times since 2016, but Core JJ was an awesome Zyra player before he was the control support player most people know him as. But the important thing about the start of this is that TSM started it because Double Lift's arrow is on cooldown. Now, I'm not sure why they started it. Maybe they just don't want to face check the brush, and if Core JJ is back, they get a kill. If he hasn't, he's coming out. But standing on melee range of each other, not smart. But they've only forced out a heal. They haven't forced out anything else. And this is what you see, is that it ends up being much more neutral because the positioning of TSM is different. The quest is cashed in. The levels have come in. This punishment, the moment you ping 6, like that famous, Enchanted Crystal Arrow and Bullet Time combo, is a lot more potent and a lot at the time at level 6 and a lot more toothless this much later. Arrow is on cooldown. They're able to get away with Flash, and then it ends up just being extended all in. Hecarim gets first blood. He goes a damage build, so you feel good about that. Core JJ gets the return kill as the support, not ideal. And you're going in even trade, slightly uneven with first blood, but largely even trade around Sona Taric. So Sona Taric works in that if the game reaches mid-game and the gold is the same, Sona Taric almost always wins, especially with as awesome of a Sona Taric draft as what TSM have in this game. So top side has been Impact got a gank, got a flash advantage, and it's been isolated. So Impact has a small CS lead, but it's basically even, right? And I think the Aurelia is starting to hit the good part of the matchup, so it's definitely not one where there's been a lot of jungle attention topside to allow the cannon to overextend and force all-ins, which to me is the only way you really have a lot of lane agency there. So it's probably fine. We are trying to work out stuff about Impact in this game, because this is the sort of game where he's going to be really tested. This is the sort of game where, with the Vladimir, he was run over in game number 2. This game number 2 of the regular season that these teams played on the final match day. If the cannon goes CS for CS, it's probably okay, but if you get solo killed, obviously a lot less okay. Yeah, you just get into moments like this, right? Like, you're not quite Zoe, but Impact starts us at 1300 health, and then, you know, you just lose damage trade something crazy if Broken Blade's able to build up Conqueror and also his on-hit damage. Like, it's a really good matchup for Aurelia. So if you were thinking that Kennen wins this matchup outside of early levels, it's not true. What about the Kennen build? My read on this is that Impact believes that going Gunblade doesn't extend how long he can enter lane against Aurelia, and I agree with that. Now, you might say, but what about Vladimir and going Gunblade against Vladimir? Vladimir wins battles of attrition, where he does 300 damage, heals 200, and then does that 5 times, and you just can't equate that trade. So, you go Gunblade against that lane because you heal 100 of the 200 between Q cooldowns, or between, like, little skirmish windows. Aurelia bursts you from over 1,000, as we can see. Like, it did 1,100 damage effortlessly. And because it's a all-in amount of burst rather than a war of attrition, I think Gunblade doesn't help you stay in lane because it doesn't give you health. I think you need health to shrug off and sustain, and you're not going Rylai's Gunblade as Kennen. So I think going Protobelt to clear waves and also teleport is your best bet. Now, you come back to the original analysis of should you have gone Kennen here? That's the part where I think is actually the bigger thing than Aurelia winning the lane and Kennen falling behind, is that I think Aurelia always wins lane against Kennen eventually. Earlier or later, depends on early game. Against not Sona Taric, it's an awesome comp on TL's side, but you kind of need the stuns just to waste Cosmic Radiance time. And after that, I still think Hecarim and Aurelia both have Conqueror, which should win extended fights. Like, it's double Conqueror, AoE, Hecarim, with lots of sustain and consistent damage, with on-hits and heals. I just don't think the Kennen last pick does anything unless you're really, okay, at 15 to 20 minutes, Kennen flank comes in, Ash Arrow goes out, we get picks, we get Baron, and end the game. You will run a super timer the moment you choose Kennen in this game. I think you just go for a tank and try to match that 5v5 late. I don't think that works against Sona Taric. Like, Ornn, I guess, is the tank, right? Especially on 9.8, more Ornn will be played. You need your Ornn to both reset a fight and initiate at least half the time. It works against Lux's positioning. Maybe you get flashes out of it. Is it better than Kennen? In this particular case, I would say yes. Just because I don't think Kennen ever does anything outside of 20 to 25 minutes. But it's close. With 9.8 buffs and all those items being gold bonanzas, maybe Ornn just gets picked here, right? See, there's no free objectives against Sona Taric at 15 minutes. That hasn't been the case in every Sona Taric game I've watched. I've probably watched 8 to 10 pro games now because I've been trying to watch almost every region play Sona Taric, and there was a lot of NEU Masters. Like, at this point, sometimes the Sona is still comically behind, but in this point, the Sona and Taric are doing just fine. I don't see gold numbers. We'll see if we get a gold flash anytime recently. I don't think there has been a gold flash anytime recently. But the Sona Taric are not way off the play, and they're already feeling strong enough to skirmish over this objective with Warrior Hecarim, and no ult on the Kennen for walking up in this scenario. So no free objectives here is pretty significant. Sometimes Sona Taric's still giving away freebies at 22 minutes. So 15 minutes in, TSM feeling strong enough to walk up is pretty big. So TSM really, really over pursues here. So watching this play, Core JJ is in an awesome spot. This is like the god tier Zyra spot to be when you know that TSM are going to funnel themselves in from a single direction because you can just hit everything over the wall and you don't die instantly for doing it. Aurelia's walking down without ultimate. And so much of your power as this comp is how much you can do during Cosmic Radiance. Lux and Aurelia aren't there when Cosmic Radiance is armed. So they dive in, and yes, they kill Double Lift. He's dead. Sven got him. Bjergsen finishes it off. You got one enemy from the enemy team. But Kennen is level 11, and his ult's going to be up. Rek'Sai brawls super hard in the early game and has an item lead over the enemy jungler. There's lots of damage left on TL. So TSM, super overzealous going in. The sort of execution that works fine at level 16 when your team's in position. But now Aurelia's teleporting in a little bit late. Impact's already there and gets to go through the front line. Bjergsen's super out of position to do much. You want to be a quarterback as Lux, throwing down spells because you're always 1,000 range away because your spells are so long range. Instead, he's in a really weird spot, and Cosmic Radiance, Sona's health bar, Hecarim's health bar all used in the end to get one pick onto Ashe. So this is really overzealous play. Like, Broken Blade is huge, right? Like, Broken Blade had a big early game. He has Trinity Force. Your Trinity Force Aurelia versus your can-only team fight Kennen is Kennen gets in and pops people. And there's those zones of the Slicing Maelstrom to get more kills. And Broken Blade misses an E. Bjergsen has to flash over the wall. Like, that's super overzealous. I guess that's Arcadian calling that he can do something and botlane trying to back him up, but they didn't have the deep vision to make this play. We talked about how they could compete for Drake, and absolutely they could compete for it. They delayed it the first time, but then they just tried to not dot their I's or cross their T's and all in. And that was poor problem solving from them, and TL understanding that this game definitely didn't go to TL's plan. They haven't harassed as much as they want. They haven't played perfectly against Sona Taric by any means, but they're still able to capitalize on a mistake from TSM. No value on Aurelia at all. TP first from Kennen. It's a decisive TP. It's a team fight ult. Aurelia can't do anything. But in the solo lane, that's what we're talking about. Protobot Kennen team fights well. Trinity Force Aurelia kills one person real good. So Sona Taric never lost their turret, and there was actually only 3 turret plates taken across the map by TL, which is way better than expected for Sona Taric. I think Sona Taric losing turret at 17 minutes in the 2v2 and losing 3 turret plates and being down a couple of Drakes is kind of like the minimum expected. So the fact that it went better than that is a problem. And this is the struggle for Jensen in this game. The other thing we didn't even talk about is Aurelia beats Ken in the side lane. Aurelia has always beaten Zoe from certain item timings. And mid lane is harder now that you can't just W through the trouble bubble and negate damage completely. But we're way past early game, so Trinity Force means that if Jensen misses trouble bubble, he just gets instantly killed by Broken Blade. You can just ult here, flash over the trouble bubble, and kill Zoe. Like, it was always Ignite Aurelia as the hard counterpick to Zoe. So both side lane matchups here are going to struggle against Zoe eventually, as awkward cast occurs to see the solo kill there. But take my word for it, it works out later for the Aurelia. Here's a solo kill there. Hits his E. And you think about Gunblade in this, he would have used the Gunblade slow, he would have auto-attacked a couple of times. It doesn't change anything. You're getting turret dived, so lets you know why not bothering with Gunblade in this game. So TL still feel pressured, right? The onus is on the team against Sona Taric, just like the past analysis of the onus is on the team against Funnel. So given the analysis doesn't change there, TL want to take whatever they can get. It's not a 14-minute Rift Herald. It's way after the fact at 18 minutes. Important side note here is, let's remember the analysis before the start of game 1, where we talked about how the combined kills per minute, which is, in this game, TSM plus TL's kills, 8 per minute, 19 minutes. So we're talking about, 1 kill every 2.5 minutes, so like 0.4 or 0.35 kills a minute is very low. And Sona Taric in a slow meta, which to me would be LCK and LCS, doesn't have to skirmish and fight before things are ready. Therefore, only starts to fight around now when the early game core is done. What about when you try to base Sona Taric against... specifically against IG with their 1 combined kills per minute, so at least one team getting a kill every minute. Well, then you're trying to skirmish and play into how weak Sven and Smoothie were in the first 19 minutes. We skipped the first 19 minutes pretty unscathed. Sona Taric got through it, and that's why for this series against this sort of a team, Sona Taric seems pretty good. So I think that scouting-wise is smart from TSM. You wonder about playing forward Sona Taric in series at MSI. Oh, that's a bad one. So they lost the Zyra for free over the wall. Nicely done by CoreJJ and Double Lift. That's what you go for. Really, really well played. So Sona being dead is very not ideal. And yeah, it doesn't matter. Sona Taric. Alright, let's watch the replay here. So this is not Sona Taric. This is dead Sona. Right? We can't call this a Sona Taric fight. This is just Hecarim Taric synergy and a Federelia. So Hecarim Taric means that Acadian gets in the backline, solo kills Double Lift, and Hecarim as a champion answers Ashe so well. And even though the fight couldn't have started better, the early game going as it did means that everyone dies from TL. And when you lose this fight as TL, you know the game is over. Like this game probably should end really fast from here. It doesn't, as I can tell from the timer, but if you lose a fight where you delete Sona and the consistent value of the heals and on-hit damage isn't even felt, and the fight is still so one-sided, like it's all over. Bjergsen also able from long range to put down a lot of value too. Let's watch Bjergsen here, because we don't think about Lux as a champion very often. Starts off with just 1 shield onto Broken Blade while he gets into position. Look at this. Getting the double bind, which remember does full duration. I still remember when Lux was 1 second duration or half duration on second target. But the double bind on none other than Kennen and the Zoe. Just beautiful. Man. It couldn't have started better, and then it's Bjergsen be like, by the way, Bjergsen. And he just hard wins the fight there. What a sick binding. Man, that's really well played. I guess you just build Banshee Veil, and then maybe you're just under no threat as Bjergsen, right? You can be that quarterback we were talking about. I would imagine Banshee Veil. It's usually been a Lux item. Just binding is doing 1/3 of Jensen's health. It's huge. And now as TL, it's like, how do you reclaim map control when the control wards are actually there defensively from the side of TSM, when they have outrange on the Lux, when the Hecarim diving in, Ashe, needs kind of stasis to deal with? The answer is you probably don't. So let's see how TSM closes one out, or if TL are smart about delaying. Because my read at this point is like, this game is done, so TSM's going to win 2-0 in the first 2 games of the series. Okay, Rift Herald's one way, so they summon Rift Herald top. That's going to delay TSM from grouping. You need TSM not to be grouped as 5, but you're also losing in the 1. So like almost every configuration is like pretty hard to deal with. And Broken Blade takes a lot of free damage before he starts, but no worries. Well, with the extra people, we'll take it down. Good move here. No Baron threat from TSM's comp. They have a very bad Baron team. As long as they're not as 5, their Baron speed is pretty slow, and like Sven doesn't have like the Lich Bane in order to do Baron damage yet. So at this point in the game, from 20 to like 32 minutes, there's no worries about grouping onto Aurelia and taking her down outnumbered, because you're just not scared of the enemy starting Baron like you would against a conventional AD carry. That's good play from TL. Okay, so good lane assignment stuff. So this play here, where they make the double TP bot lane and take down Broken Blade, these are the sort of plays TL weren't doing when they were behind in some of their other series we've seen them in, like TL vs TSM last time they happened. This is a really good capitalization because it's a multi-part play. It's Aurelia overextended and went down a lane. We have double TP advantage that we can use somewhere. If it's not around Sonataric, you don't have to worry about the frustration of being out-sustained. This is a pretty nice point because it'll take Broken Blade a while to recreate the amount of pressure he has, and it delays when the bot lane turret goes down. And there's no cost to this play when you communicate it because you're not at all concerned about Baron being started. So compared to a TL that against FlyQuest was map resetting and then face checking in areas where they didn't have map control or not playing towards their vision, or their vision was kind of placed in weird spots. They have a relative lack of vision here, but they do have some defensive wards around Baron and a TP advantage, and they use it well. So shout out to TL for doing something that at least addresses one of our points of what they do when they start to have the game slip away from them. Yes, I know you can look at the top and see that the gold wasn't counting against them, but understanding Sonataric, they are very far in this position in the game. It still is a really nice move from TL that may not be as clearly rewarded in terms of gold. Good proactivity here. Look, if you're going to draft this comp, which we already mentioned we didn't like that much, you're going to have to be proactive and you're going to have to try to make catches, and they're doing that, which is good to see. The threat of the Baron is there because of the double mountain, but how do you ever do double mountain Baron against TSM, this comp? It's so hard. You can never win the vision war of attrition. You can't tank the Baron and turn off it because your team is too squishy. Like, TL have really fast Baron, but they have no ability to tank or turn, even though they have good CC tools. So they have to get a pick, then get Baron, which I think is a different point to the double mountain really actually helping their calculations. Usually double mountain means a lot when you have, say, a tank top laner can get control of the pit and then bait it a lot, and the enemy doesn't know how long it takes for you to finish it. In this particular game, yeah, it doesn't have the same sort of value, in my opinion. Can't sneak Baron on either side, there's too many damn wards. It's Sightstone kept on Aurelia and double Sightstone item on Sonataric. Like, this is so much vision, even a spotting ward as well from Arcadian. And there's other things like Tremor Sense, so yeah, no one's sneaking Baron. TSM want to stay grouped as a 4 and have Aurelia continue to make Kennan's life hell. Aurelia is further built for lane. It's old Wit's End, in case you're wondering which patch we're on. 9.6. Which has nice little synergies in team fights for Sona and Lux, but just good for dunking Kennen in the side lane. Kennan's moved away, so TSM need to be careful about the flank. Good lane ward. When was the lane ward put down? So the lane ward is known to them, so they should be baiting here, because they saw it placed on their own ward that they have. TSM put down the first lane ward, TL put down the second, so that means that TSM have the advantage there, because they know about it. And TSM can face check easily, they have 2 forms of sustain, they have an invulnerability, so pushing up wards and contesting vision, like we've talked about. Easy mode. TSM playing this really well. Just baiting around, keeping Kennen interested, but keeping Kennen out of lane, and then by the time it comes back, there's a group minion wave, and maybe you can make something happen. TP on cooldown from double lift, so no more plays like we saw bot lane before. So it's just going to become just a lot of Baron control. And so the other way that Sona Taric wins in the mid game is war of attrition. We always talk about during our cast in the LCK the exhaustion of vision, like running out of control wards as TL. Now TL do have Hawkshot, which they get 2 charges of. They have Zoe over the back of the pit. They have Tremor Sense, but Sona Taric walks up to Baron, plays around with it, draws out a control ward, clears that, and then checks your inventories with tab and says how many wards they have left. And intelligently, Jensen has gone into blue trinket. They got double blue trinket, double Hawkshot, trouble bubble, plants, Rek'Sai. Those are their ways to check. So Sona Taric's usual ability to abuse Baron back timings around vision exhaustion is going to be the hardest to do against this comp, which does mean the game will probably extend out more than some other games with Sona Taric, because actually forcing TL to back and starting the Baron is so hard with this much spotting vision, both from kits and also rune choices. So like, TSM's a bit frustrated because, like, wait, we took all the easy objectives. Eventually, we're going to get this bot lane turret from Aurelia's matchup against the Cannon. But otherwise, they're not actually able to gain much. They're just getting gold onto their people, which is fine. I think they're happy with their scaling. It's just early game went better than expected for Sona Taric, but the mid game's like getting into a lull state more than you would normally expect with Sona Taric. Get the reset on the red. That's so easy to face check. Taric's a god tier face checker. Hecarim's a god tier face checker. You can always ult away. Bastion Link, heals, shields. They get the bot lane. Good stuff. So TSM invade the red buff mostly to actually draw out free objectives without a fight. But you see these flashing lights. Teamfight happening, and it's in an area where TL can get something of a surround, which is actually pretty hard to simulate with how the game has gone just before. Get the start of a surround, but they can't draw out an important cooldown even from TSM. The moment they start to death ball, even with a surround, Sona Taric as a duo just stops us from it being any action at all. So while it looks like action, I paused it like it was going to be action. Good snipe there. So they got the surround, they couldn't engage a fight. They tried to just blow up Smoothie with damage. If Impact was aware of this and actually unloaded all of his damage instantly, let's see if they get the kill. There's a world where Kennen all-ins Taric and pops him and he's dead here. So that means no Cosmic Radiance arms. Does that change a lot? Probably not, right? Because Cosmic Radiance isn't even on Broken Blade. Taric would have died. Maybe they don't kill Rek'Sai as easily, but these are what we're talking about. It's 3 utility shielding backliners, and it's double Conqueror frontline, even under turret, getting huge value. Like, this execution is pretty straightforward. It's getting to this point. As Sona Taric comp, this should be hard. But their early game was good. The draft, like we say, it didn't feel like TL had the most ideas into how to shut down. And while it was cool to see the blast from the past, it didn't do too much. So it's the first big gold lead. It's not big, but relative gold lead to TSM in this game. They're going to leave with a huge vision lead as well. We can skip over the replay. We saw enough of it in the first live call. Peter's very hyped. So, TL, in a back timing, they're going to lose a Drake, they're going to put down vision, but the enemy team's going to come back, and then it's suddenly Sona Taric with all their wards. So, Let's see how long TL can defend Baron. When it feels like the moment all ults are up, TSM should just be able to get in there and all in again. Okay. Watching the picture-in-picture. Nicely played. So when the vision is cleared, Bjergsen doesn't know where Rek'Sai is kiting back because he actually has no forward vision here. There's definitely ways to get away from this without being spotted. Instead, Rek'Sai just comes with a full-on pincer. And there's flash, there's cleanse, but it's not enough. Like, this is actually a really good surround from TL. So Kennen or Rek'Sai getting access to Lux and taking her down before the fight starts in the previous phase of the game where we saw all the kiting around topside never happens, right? Because you always got all your utility people together. In this case where Taric, Sona, and Lux were separated and Bjergsen was trying to control space, it's one of the few times in the game where actually they can get on top of Bjergsen and kill him. Bjergsen doesn't use his summoners, but he would have been dead anyway. So they have a fast Baron, but the important ult is still up. So let's see how this goes, actually. Remember, I haven't seen these fights before. So if you ask me, PapaSmithy, do you all in on this Baron as TL? There's actually only one reason why the answer to that is no. What does chat think is the reason that you don't burn this Baron completely against TSM's 4 members? Because it's 5v4, right? What is the only reason you don't burn this Baron down? Come on, chat, give me something here. Why are we not burning down the Baron? Aurelia ult, Hecarim's still alive. Sona ult, you get aced. 50-50 smite. Heck, Fear, these are all wrong so far. Sona Tarek still up? Nope. Why are you not burning the Baron here? You'll get aced. Still not the reason not to burn the Baron. They can't even tank it. Nope, should still burn the Baron in all of these reasons. No tank, nope. Sona R, nope. Here we go. Nice Cobus, got it. Xmithy, no smite. Same from Bazard right afterwards. No smite. Is the second answer as well. The only reason you don't burn it is because you have no smite. The enemy team, in almost every game state where they're in order, where Lux, Sona, and Taric are together, will never lose one of those 3 members, and we've already seen teamfights go their way. So you're not going to win a teamfight and get Baron. You're not going to sneak Baron. Taking the Baron in a 5v4 against a 50-50 is the most likely way you win this game. There's almost no better scenario you could even imagine coming apart from a double lift face checking in game 1 level mistake. If the game plays even normally, even 45%, there's just no way for TL to ever get the Baron. So if Xmithy has smite here, the correct move is to burn it and try to get it. Because in almost every future, you're not getting Baron. So that's actually the interesting thing here is this is one of those times where as an analyst, the correct thing to do is to advise this team to burn the Baron. Because almost every other future in this game, you never get into Baron. But he doesn't have smite, so they can't do it. They have to peel off, which sucks. Because then, you know, TSM gets to recall and back away. Now, they can wait out the smite and just all in it again. But unfortunately, after all the minions respawn and start pushing up, then suddenly all the minions start working out, and then actually it gets even worse if things go bad. So I wouldn't have hated just starting the Baron again, but you definitely understand disengaging the second time around. You really do, as a player, have to understand what are all the possible futures for this game and how could it really have gone. And given what we saw, TL kind of had their best moment to ever get near a Baron that they'll probably never get again in almost any way the game goes from here. I say this without having watched the rest of the game. If TSM can ever group, this is what happens. Turrets die instantly. It's just a Sheen too. It's not even Lichbane. With Lichbane, they might have got 2 turrets. And when they run at you head on, now that Lux is respawned, TL, they can't initiate because it's not going to draw enough cooldowns. They can't surround because Impact's teleports on cooldown, so they just end up surrendering objectives. Let's see if the game state changes. So side lanes are actually in a pretty even spot. Unfortunately, with no TP advantage, Cannon doesn't want to drag Aurelia to the side lane because he's losing the 1v1 there. It's a nice ward from Smithy. I assume it's Smithy, but regardless, nice ward that Smithy was looking at that gives them information. Like, almost, it just sucks. Like, that's the thing. There's not a lot of analysis for me to add here because TL actually can't do anything to change this. They're waiting for a mistake. If Smite was up, maybe you can take that Baron, but... Because the problem is, in almost every area, you can't win the 1v1 with Cannon. You can't win the warding battle around the Baron because the enemy has more wards. You're going to get exhausted out of control wards soon. You can't take a full-on 5v5 because the Taric ult resets that. Like, can't even imagine how frustrating it is to be these TL players and that. What can we do here? They get a cleanse out of Bjergsen, no more than that. The heals start, Broken Blade's half health. Arcadian decides who he's going to kill. It's a 1-for-1, which actually is pretty good. They don't actually get a Cosmic Radiance out here. Let's watch the replay. Why does Arcadian do this? Who has the Bastion link? Definitely not the Hecarim. Arcadian, I guess, thinks they're going to flash in after him. That was actually really strange. That was a really weird disconnect there. Maybe he thought he had Cosmic Radiance on him? I don't know. Not really sure why Hecarim suicided there. But one kill just means so little. Cannon can't really enter lane against Aurelia, so that's not even an option anymore. TL just trying to put down as much vision as possible. They're just looking for, I guess, a chance steal around Baron. They don't know where Impact is. Oh, the Bjergsen damage. Like, TSM is actually playing this pretty poorly. And they're still going to win easily, right? So we'll talk about this, again, a Sona Taric fight. And this is not Sona Taric, like, beasting, right? So TSM go for a flank, which is usually not what you want. But I guess they feel like they got a lot of easy objectives, so they just want to force a fight. And right now they've been kind of just in a lull state for quite a while. So they go for a very deep Aurelia flank. Meanwhile, Hecarim just kind of dies. Like, Hecarim's not really playing with his supports here. He's allowing himself to be isolated, which you don't want to do. It's all about being a death ball with the Hecarim. Instead, he's like brawling on the bot side where they don't have vision and getting chunked out. They turn on to Arcadian. Now they have to use the Cosmic Radiance defensively, which again also is not great. So TL, with the information they have, actually play this really well. Like, if you think about how they're playing against the flank that's coming through, they haven't pinged it out, so we assume they don't know about it. They try to defend in an area where they know that TSM doesn't have vision. They get a nice catch onto the Hecarim, try to blow him up. They can't do that, but they do draw out the Cosmic Radiance. You can see why they're playing the way they are, TL, but it just feels like they've got like the Thunder Sticks and the enemy have the Axes, because you just come in and it's forgiving enough a comp that the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th dive in with something like Aurelia Hecarim is going to get kills. They push in. I assume they win the game. Well, this is Sona Taric. Sona Taric is forgiving, easy to play once you hit the mid game with your spikes. And in a low CKPM region with very few kills in the game and very little harass onto the Sona turret during the laning phase. Things that stand out was the Hecarim and Taric trading his flash with Core JJ's Zyra. That was actually a really smart play where they ghost and flashed level 2 in bot lane and drew out the level 1 Core JJ Zyra, relieved pressure from bot, and there was no real return to bot lane. Ashe Zyra at 6 didn't go for an instant all-in, and by the time it hit like 7 and 8, the map state around it wasn't that powerful, and so they were never really able to punish in the lane. And with all of that considered, the game hits mid-game. Nothing of interest to VOD review, really, because TSM tries a lot of different ways to pull TL out of their defensive position. Eventually, one takes hard enough, and Sona Taric wins the game. Like, that's just the way it goes. So pretty standard closeout here. My advice to you is if you see a Sona Taric game, spend a lot more time VOD reviewing the before quest is cashed in, before grouping phase happens, and a lot less time VOD reviewing afterwards, because again, it's just too easy to close a game from that point onwards. All right, gonna take a short break, play some ads. We're back with game number 3, so almost halfway through TL versus TSM. Thank you for watching game number 2. Be right back.